Look, it was an unpopular opinion when I had this a couple of days ago, but it might be coming true. Russell Wilson is the perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me tell you why. Before I do, remember to subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that button below me. That way you'll be amongst the first to know when I've got new videos up and when we go live and watch DA Live weekly. I know that Russell Wilson has a reputation for A, being washed up, and B, being hard to deal with. But let's pick through this here. Number one, being washed up. Remember that Russell Wilson has been shoved into a situation the last 2 years which really did not benefit him from a football standpoint. Year number one under Nathaniel Hackett, he's basically playing under the worst head coach in recent NFL history. I mean, pick your short-term 1 or 2 year guys, and there's a pretty short list of Urban Meyer, Jim Tom Sula, and Nathaniel Hackett as the worst. Year number two, he has Sean Payton, who never wanted him as his head coach. So there is no doubt that I think Russell Wilson has more football-wise than what we've seen in Denver. And it wasn't like he was surrounded by great weapons with the Broncos. Massive pressure, shaky organizational leadership. I think what happened in Denver was not a true indicator of Russell Wilson, quote, being washed. That's the first part. I think he's got good football left in him. The second part is he is known as a difficult guy to deal with within the locker room. But I think that's always been based on his belief in what he needed to be, and that's been sometimes misguided. But if he believes he needs to be a team-oriented guy on a winning franchise to save his career, I think he'll do so. I'm going to unpack all of this, but those are the two reasons. I think he's still got football left. I think that the idea he can't be a good, decent teammate is also, I think it's misguided. Here's why. Okay, let's go back to when he left Seattle. In Seattle, he wants more control. In Seattle, he wants the offense to fully run through him. He wants to throw downfield. He wants to let Russ cook. All right? And it goes against what the Seahawks have been. Pete Carroll wanted a defensive-laden, ground-based team. They won a Super Bowl that way. Pete Carroll's a defensive backs coach at heart, and Pete Carroll always believed defense and strong running will support the passing and will run that way and will run the offense that way. That doesn't help Russ become a league MVP. It does not help Russ become the biggest quarterback in his mind that he can be. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's how he viewed what happened in Seattle. And so there's a culture clash. Russ believed in his mind that there was more for him to do, to accomplish, if he was going to become one of the great quarterbacks of all time. And in his mind, that's what he felt he was destined to become. He had to have more control. And so he wants to run around to the backfield and make big plays. He wants to go downfield. He wants a vertical passing attack, and he's upset or he's difficult or he's kind of constantly agitated. He's not getting those opportunities. And so even though there were times in Seattle, post the 2 Super Bowls, that he did play well enough to be considered an MVP, and his numbers were pretty staggering, 4,000 yards passing, more than 30 touchdowns thrown, very few interceptions. He's not considered that, and he feels my destiny is to be more, so I need to act like I'm more. 2020, the COVID year, he wants to go for broke. He throws for more than 4,200 yards and 40 touchdowns. That's not that long ago. It's also one of the highest quarterback rating seasons he's ever had. And yet there's a constant turmoil, a constant friction between him and Pete Carroll. There were certainly people in the NFL that viewed Russell Wilson as the key to a Super Bowl, and one of those teams was the Broncos. He feels like he needs to be more, and it rubbed everybody in Seattle in that locker room on defense the wrong way after the Super Bowls, and it rubbed his coach and his front office the wrong way as well. There are plenty of guys that played in Seattle with Russell Wilson that don't really love the guy. And he was putting on this Batman costume. He was putting on the aura of, I'm a superstar. This is how superstars act. I'm going to try to be a legend. I'm supposed to be a legend. This is how legends act. This is what legends do. Rodgers has control in Green Bay. He's playing to a type, okay? In Denver, his belief is, I was brought here to win a Super Bowl. I got all my control. I must play to the character of being the legend, the leader, the alpha. Now, I describe all of this because that's not really who Russell Wilson is. When you're trying to play a character, especially in competitive sports, people see through it because they're next to you in a locker room when there's no crowd and there's no cameras and they know what you really are. And so that artificiality of Russell Wilson has, I think, stained who he is or what he can do. In Seattle, it's Mr. Unlimited. In Denver, it's Broncos country. Let's ride. He always projected what he thought he needed to be. And it was corny. It was ridiculous. But I don't think he's stupid enough to try that type of thing in Pittsburgh. Look, he might be inauthentic. He might be corny, but he ain't stupid. He's not a dummy. He said a couple of weeks ago he wants 2 more championships in the next 5 years. At 35, he'll be 36 in November. That would take him through 40 to 41 years old. That's probably the end of the road for him. The only way you can do that is by latching on to an established franchise with a solid coaching staff and a great team around you. A really good locker room. That's what he has in Pittsburgh. I think this is strategic. I think Russ, by saying he wants rings, is saying, I don't want to be the man to do my thing with a rebuilding franchise. I don't have to be QB1 and make a lot of cash. I need to latch on to a winner where I can just be one of the guys. When you have a locker room led by Mike Tomlin with TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and others, you're not going to walk in there and say, give me the office on the 2nd floor and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. He's not an idiot. So I think you're not going to get the type of Russell Wilson everybody has been belly aching about over the last couple of seasons. Don't get me wrong. I think that type of stuff did hurt him in Denver, but the situation in Denver also hurt him. Let's also look at the numbers. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions last year, 3,000 yards passing in 15 games. He's benched for the last 2 weeks by Sean Payton. If he plays those final 2 weeks and the Broncos were in playoff contention, he finishes with about 3,400 yards passing, 28-29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 10 interceptions. That's clearly an upgrade over what Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph were for the Steelers last season. I'm not saying last year's Russ makes last year's Steelers team a Super Bowl contender, but it's an improvement. And the money factor is huge here. You don't got to pay him anything. He's making $39 million from the Broncos. If he's willing to go to a winner, he's willing to go to a place he has to be the humble servant. That's a guy that's going to take the veterans minimum or close to it. So he's not anything against your cap. You're not going to have to trade for him, so no assets go out the door. And you're going to get a version of Russ where he's trying to build back his aura and his reputation. The thing about Russ you have to realize is he's always believed he was one of the greats. He knows at this point in time to rebuild what he once was or thought he was going to be means you got to win ball games. And how do you win ball games right now at 35 without a lot of options? Find the best place to win. And when you find the best place to win, you become one of the guys. Again, I don't think Russell Wilson is authentic all the time, but I do know that he's not a moron. If you were the Steelers, this makes so much sense. And if you're Russell Wilson, it makes even more. You're not getting prime Russ, but you don't need prime Russ. You probably don't want prime Russ. What you want is a humbled version of Russell Wilson who still has the game IQ, the experience in big games, and a pretty elite skill level to be able to elevate that position in Pittsburgh. And I think he gives you all of those things. I'm glad it may come together. Makes too much sense. Hey, remember, once again, to subscribe to this channel. I appreciate you watching. Brand new videos coming out regularly. Just bang on this button right here to subscribe, and we'll let you know when new videos and live streams, live shows are coming on the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm DA, Damon Amendolara. We'll see you next time.